Are we ready? Okay. Okay, I'm glad to be here, y'all. Today, we are in the middle of Unit 2 in our book. And the unit is made up of 3 lessons that look at the meaning of Christian giving. I should have done this before you passed the hat. Wallace last week did a lesson for us about, went back to the exodus of the Jews in the Old Testament and their giving to build a place of worship in the desert, the tabernacle. Well, this is the second lesson, and it's from the book of Luke, and it will contrast the giving motives of the scribes and the teachers with the giving of the poor widow. I don't know about you, I thought about giving, and I've heard all this stuff on TV, and I'm just kind of really getting panicked about Christmas. Here it comes, and everybody you listen to says, get out there quick, you got to do this. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not even ready. I'm not even thinking about it correctly. So all of a sudden we're supposed to be in that mode, and I don't know about you, but I really am getting panicky. It's not really the cost of a gift, in my opinion, but the hard part is finding something that the person's going to enjoy and can use. And we're getting to the age where we want to give things away. We don't want to get stuff. It's like, let's just shift some stuff around. We really are getting there. So it's kind of hard. It's hard to think of, the perfect gift. And when you do, you think, oh, that's great. I'm really so pleased with myself. And I did that one year. I gave a little carved bird on a swing. It sounds ridiculous. But it was so simple. It was a little stick, and it had a little piece of wire, and there was this little carved bird. And I gave it to my sister's sister-in-law. Now, don't panic for me, because we don't usually go that far out in the family, but if we're together, she and I are close, and we usually exchange gifts. And she loves birds, and I just thought, oh, this is the cutest thing, and she will probably hang that someplace outside. And I just felt good about it. It was really just a little gift from the heart. And it let her know that I really knew what she liked and what she might like to have. And even if she didn't have something for me that year, it wasn't so expensive that she would worry about it or think bad. But can you think of a gift, large or small, that was just the right thing that you either gave to somebody or they gave to you? Nobody's gotten a good gift. You got one?
I'll tell you what, when one of my Pat was in service, he flew his helicopter home, and a friend of mine made a picture of him just, when he got out of the helicopter, and I was shaking his hand, and he brought it by, and he was in a new truck, and I never will forget, Charles, I said, Charles, this picture means more to me than you could ever know. I said, I can't reproduce this. I said, if you would give me that truck or that picture, I'd take that picture any day. I said, I can buy me a truck just like that, But that was a small thing that is just one of my most valued possessions because of, what it was, just the picture.
But it was also something he knew you would enjoy and like,
yeah.
or he wouldn't have done it. I just think that's the thing. What motivates us to give? And not just gifts, but to give to the church, to give to missions, to give. What do you think motivates you?
Gratitude is part of it.
Oh, gratitude. What about in here? Why do we put some money in that little pass the hat? Because I like coffee.
Yeah.
Love and concern.
Right.
Well, true. You just read about all the books we've bought. We've kind of fill up the coffers again. Love and concern.
A love gift.
A love gift.
Love offering.
And Nancy, it gives us joy.
It does. It gives us joy.
Well, I'll
It gives,
try to give my daughter something, and she'll try to give me something. She says, "Don't steal my joy, Mom."
there you go. Take it and be happy.
Yeah.
Well,
There
when you
you
see
go.
the joy
There you
in
go.
the recipient, like Dr. Malcolm just mentioned, that's worth so much. When you
Oh,
see
right.
his smile and how much he appreciates it,
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes it all worthwhile.
And sometimes they're really going to love that gift. You probably knew that would be something you would
Yes.
love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Joanne?
Every year my family asks me what I want for Christmas, and I can't ever think of anything.
Well, that's kind of a
The
good
best
problem.
best thing they've given me is an iPad, because when I'm watching TV or something, I play with my iPad when the commercials, come on.
They need to teach you how to record so you can speak through those commercials. That'd be another good gift for you. I think so. We know that some gifts can be inexpensive, but can a gift be free?
What did you say? What-
We know that gifts could be inexpensive,
Yeah,
but could they be free?
Sure.
Okay, I was just thinking, Nancy, you said you went and stayed with Mary Ann.
It's a
That
free
might
gift.
be a free gift, but it
Your
probably
time.
meant the world to her.
Giving your time.
That's
Your
right.
time,
Time.
yes, your time is a real important gift that we sometimes
We enjoy being with family so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
A
Mhm.
lot of them are gone, bless them, you know, but we have great memories of being with family and the
Mhm.
love. Didn't cost anything, but the love that was exchanged, and even today,
Yeah.
the little great-grandchildren, little girls, they come up and hug you. That's one of the best gifts they could give me.
Right.
They come running to you and hug you.
And it's free.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
free
free.
gift. Well, let's get into this lesson. And we're gonna start with two verses that I'm not real sure why they put in there. Let me read these first two verses. This is Luke 20:39 and 40. It says, "Then some of the scribes answered, 'Teacher, you have spoken well,' for they no longer dared to ask him another question." You know where that came from? I went, well, what in heaven's name are they talking about? It's the most unusual start to a lesson on giving. And unless you know what went before, you don't even know what they're talking about. And maybe I'm not as smart as, maybe the people that wrote this. There's probably some, great prophetic relationship that I didn't get. The verses before this were verses where people were asking him a question. The scribes were actually asking him a question. And it was a question about resurrection, and it was designed in a what-if situation. It was really designed to trick Jesus or to embarrass him. And what was interesting is that he gave the correct, specific answer. And they were shocked, and they knew that he got it over on them, and they weren't going to venture any more into the questions. So then we move into what you would think would be about giving. This is Luke 20:41 and 44. "Then he said to them, 'How can you say that the Messiah is David's son? David himself says in the book of Psalms, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool." David thus calls him Lord, so how can he be his son?" Well, this is an interesting question that Jesus asked the scribes and the chief priest. And it was a question about the Messiah being a descendant of David. And in Psalms 101, verse 1, David refers to the Messiah as his Lord. And David says, the Lord, meaning God, this is in Psalms, he says, "The Lord said to my Lord," the second Lord means the Messiah. So David is saying that his Lord is the Messiah, and Jesus is asking this question about how can David's Lord also be his son? Well, on the surface it looks like, well, geez, that's kind of a trick question too. What is going on here? Well, we know that Jesus was often referred to as the Son of God, or the Son of David, and he was born into the house of David. And it means that as a baby, Jesus was descendant of the house of David, and as such, he could legitimately be called the Son of David. He was born in the city of David. He was called Jesus, Son of David, by a blind beggar, and he didn't seem offended by that. It didn't bother him. It was okay that he was called that. It didn't cause him a problem. So what was the problem here? Why was he asking this question, do you think? Well, I had to kind of search around, so I'm not so brilliant that I thought immediately of the right answer, but some of the commentary I read went on to explain the term itself was not a problem. But you've got to remember, Jesus was, in fact, an earthly descendant of David. The problem is that the David-like dimension of the title, by this time, had taken on a military and a political meaning during the first century Jews, who expected liberation from the Romans. And so to claim an association with King David was both a military and a political claim. And the nature of Jesus' ministry did not have anything to do with military might. And he wanted the concept to be out there, that was not the concept he wanted. That a ruler cannot be described or cannot describe Jesus or his kingdom as a ruler or a king, because the connotation is one that is not his life, his rule. Jesus is greater than an earthly concept and more than anything we could really imagine. And he was pointing out to the scribes and chief priests that their concept of a military Messiah was incorrect. To some extent, he may have been saying this in front of his disciples to remind him that he had preached in this manner. And this is not what he wanted. This was not the connotation he wanted. Now Jesus is going to turn for the concept of the Messiah and speak to his disciples in a voice that can be heard by other people in the synagogue. The verses are from Luke 45 through 47. And it says, in the hearing of all the people, he said to the disciples, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and to have the best seats in the synagogue and places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for the sake of appearances say long prayers. They will receive greater condemnation. These remarks are made by Jesus, and they really held more than one message. The time period is the first century in a Torah-centered culture, and Jesus is speaking at the synagogue. And he is speaking to his disciples, but in verse 45 it tells us he is in the hearing of all the people. Another translation said, while all the people were listening. So he knew everybody around was hearing what he had to say. He had this larger audience, not just the disciples. And he was using the situation to warn his disciples about the scribes, and then obviously warning everybody else. Well, if you think way back to the Babylonian captivity, when the Jews were taken to Babylon, scribes at that time were just government secretaries. They copied the law and other documents, and that was their job, to be copiers. But when they came back from Babylon, the return of the Jews to Jerusalem, their role began to expand. And starting with Ezra, the scribes began to teach the law to those that came back. If you remember, when they were in Babylon, they realized they didn't have the temple, and they had to depend on what they could read and what the scribes could tell them about the law, and they had to worship in a totally different way. So when they come back, they're expanding their role. They had really become very zealous defenders of the law by that time. And the scribe of the New Testament was a law expert. He could teach, he could explain, and he could interpret the law. By this time the scribe was claiming to be a person of first rank, and he began wearing these long robes that only the nobility wore. So over time, they become a mere servant who could write and read, and they have morphed their job into more powerful position as a teacher of the law, and explainer, and interpreter. And they think that they are quite important. They're putting on the robes of the nobility. They were to be accorded the same respect as a rabbi, they thought, and some thought their position should rank above a father to his son. There are a number of examples of that. when it talks about they wanted the best seat in the synagogue, this is really, I found out, the seat in front of the ark. And when you were seated there, you could see everybody that was at the men. I'm sorry, just the men. But you could see everybody that was there. So they had, kind of this elevated position. It was a toss-up who got the best seat at a banquet, either the scribe or the rabbi. I'm kind of guessing the rabbi won out over on that thing. But anyway, they thought very highly of themselves, and they really lost sight of their original job. And they expected respect, and going so far as expecting the citizens sometimes to call them master. Boy, they have really changed, haven't they? They wanted seats of honor. They wanted everybody to not bow down, but to totally respect him. And they just really thought highly of themselves. Some commentaries suggest that Jesus was warning the disciples about desires to be most important among the disciples. We know that the disciples sometimes argue about who's the favorite, who's the most important, who has the best title, who's going to get the best job when Jesus is gone. They would talk about that. And he's warning him against doing those kinds of things. They really speculate about what their position would be. And we think he was warning not only the people about the scribes, but also his disciples about what they should be thinking and doing after he was gone. He didn't want them to forget their mission. He didn't want them to expect honor and respect just because they had been a disciple of Jesus. They really had to earn that respect. So, a couple of things are going on there. Jesus continues to criticize the scribes who preyed on widows and said long-winded prayers to make themselves look pious. Well, I had to laugh because I think that was my last lesson. They were talking about the heathens, or the Gentiles as they called them, who would pray these long prayers, and you remember they would start calling names of all their pagan gods. I guess just so they'd hit one in the process as they were praying. And Jesus finishes by suggesting that these rapacious teachers would get their reward or punishment from God. Now, it said that these teachers would devour widows' houses. And we must hasten to say, I don't think every scribe was unscrupulous. Obviously, some did follow temptation and exploit the poor. The problem here is that teachers served also as judges, and if they were teaching or if they were serving as a judge, they were not supposed to be paid. And I'm guessing, especially if they were a judge, you didn't want people paying them because then you'd be afraid of who paid the most and who got the right, or who got their side adjudicated like they wanted it. They were expected to follow a trade to make money. And Jesus was called rabbi at times, but at other times he was just referred to as a carpenter, which was kind of following what was the rule. He could teach and he could preach, but he was not supposed to accept money, so he worked as a carpenter to make money. But you think about it, they taught that to support a teacher was an act of great piety. So if I told you you were more pious if you supported me, then I would be expecting, holding my hand out and see who was the most pious. That gets kind of bad. Many people would house and feed these people thinking they'd get a reward in heaven. Well, it's kind of a short step from expecting a meal to promises of heavenly eternity just for housing and lodging. So you can imagine how they could abuse that situation if they wanted to. The poor and the uneducated could obviously be more easily taken advantage of. And this was something that Jesus was preaching about and talking about. The poor widow would obviously fall in that category. And some of the commentators said, he spotted this poor widow, and possibly that's what provoked him continuing talking about the widow in light of what he was talking about with these scribes. But if you think about Roman law, first century Roman law did not really abuse the woman. It was kind of interesting. Under Roman law, and remember Jerusalem at this time was under Roman law, a widow could inherit property, she could own a business, and she did not automatically come under and have to defer to her oldest son. So not every widow was poor. I think at various times we read in the Bible about a wealthy widow who supported Jesus or who supported the disciples. But he sees this poor widow, and he uses her action in the lesson that he is teaching. This is Luke 22, 1 through 4. He looked up and saw rich people putting their gifts into the treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in all she had to live on." Jesus is sitting near the court of the women. And near this court of the women at the temple, he could see her. And he was also near the 13 collection boxes that were lined up. And these boxes were shaped like trumpets. Remember we talked about how the rich people could toss in coins and you could hear it rattling down, and then everybody go, "Oh, they got a lot of money. Good for them." Well, each box had a different purpose. One might be wood for the fires that were burning. One fires of sacrifice. One could be for altar incense. One could be for keeping up the fancy habits of the priest. So they all had a specific job. And I guess if you were really wealthy, you'd go on and put money in each one of them. The more affluent givers, flung it in there, and they were like, "It's nothing to me to give this." But here's this poor widow, and she's got these 2 small copper coins. Everything I read made a big deal out of the fact that it was the amount of that coin. I don't even know why they had a coin this small, but it was equal to about 1/20th of your pay for 1 hour of work. So as a laborer, you're not making a lot of money, but you figure 1/20th of that. So obviously this was kind of all she had to live on, but she gave it. One commentator I read said that the value of a gift depends on 2 things. One is the spirit in which the gift is given, and the sacrifice involved to give the gift. I think that fits what we were talking about. We were talking more about the spirit of a gift. We were saying, we don't have to give an expensive gift, but the spirit is, something we know that somebody would enjoy and could help them. The sacrifice involved in a gift. I won't say it was a sacrifice for you to give up a day to spend with your friend. That's probably not true. But sometimes we do some things that we wouldn't call expensive gifts, but they might be a sacrifice, might they not? If we have to give up time or take time or go someplace, that might be a sacrifice. What about the value of a gift that is coerced? Does it have any value? Well, it might have some monetary value, right?
Now, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, I come to your house and I just gloat and carry on over, let's say, some pretty vase, and I just carry on to and I said, "Boy, I would just love to have that," and I really think that would look great in my home, and I keep on until you think, "Oh my God," and you give it to me. I don't think I could coerce you though, but if I could.
You probably could coerce me into most anything I got, but maybe not Gwen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny question. I mean, I think it has value if you coerce someone to say, "Look, give this, you got plenty of money, I mean, I still think it gives value,
Oh, it's worth
maybe
something.
you appeal to the person's conscience,
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a mixed thing,
Well,
I think
but
it can still be value if something's coerced.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, you give me that vase, it has value.
Yeah.
Would it have any value to you to do that? What would you get out of that?
Less clutter around the house.
I'll be over.
Hey, look, we're all at the same age. I got a neighbor whose wife just died, and I mean, he's got an expensive house. He's got antiques like out of the zoo, and I see him walking and riding and whatever. And I was saying, he said, "Look, my kids don't want this stuff, and I want to." And every time I see him, I said, "Look, I don't want your stuff. You know? Good deal, you probably know it. And, so, but I think, you know, the coerced gift can be of value. I'd say more to a church or an organization or something like that, you know.
Yeah, we get these things in the mail, I know every one of you do, from any charity you have
Yeah.
ever given to, and then they send you stuff ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And I think we all have church and charities we give to, and I finally had to realize, you know, I don't have to give to everybody that sends me a request.
Right.
I don't have to be coerced into it. If the preacher stands up and preaches about giving, do we get a little nervous or a little concerned, or do we feel convicted to run home, write a check? I'm not asking for real answers. What about a gift that's given just for prestige and self-display? You know, we know a lot of wealthy people that give huge gifts to charity. But I'm really kind of impressed with a celebrity gift that seems to come from the heart. I mean, I hear about these huge gifts and, you know, Gates. I'm
Yeah.
impressed with what they do, but I don't think he's changing his lifestyle because he's giving away millions. But I do look at what the gift is and think, oh, I think this is coming from the heart. This is something that they want to give. When I heard about the fires near Dollywood, I was so impressed that Dolly, continued to pay her workers while Dollywood was closed. I thought, well, that's, you know, and again, I don't think it changed her lifestyle one bit to do that, but it was the thought and thinking about these people that worked for her and taking that major burden off of them for that time. I was very impressed with that. I'm also impressed with her gift of books to children. And I've heard her say many times, part of the reason she does that is that her father never learned to read. And so it is really a gift of love to try to make sure all these children, especially the poor children in the area of Appalachia where she is, have books to read. I mean, I'm really impressed. I've been impressed with the Carter Foundation. I realize the Carter Foundation probably doesn't have as much money as other presidential libraries, but they said, you know, we're going to work on one problem, and that's skinny worm, and we're going to try very hard, and I think they're almost there, to cure blindness. And I'm thinking, you know, it's not the amount of money, but it's really the thought that went into that, and thinking, okay, what can we do with our money and with our efforts that will make the biggest impact on people's lives? Do y'all have any things like that that you're most impressed with? Gifts that people give? Yeah.
There's
Ed?
about a half a dozen medical schools around the country named for people. Sandy Weil, you know, Cornell Medical School is a Weil School of Medicine. Zuckerberg did the one in San Francisco. So, you know,
Well,
they like to have the names on them, I'm sure, but, you know, they gave a lot of money.
Well, what about, isn't it Johns Hopkins that has just set up enough of an endowment that this past year, they told the graduation class that they were covering all their medical fees? It's the only school I've heard of. It was on 60 Minutes.
I don't know who did that. But,
Well, it was a group, and they had been working for years to get the endowment large
Oh, yeah.
enough that they could do that. But y'all, when you saw the look on the faces of those students and their parents who had just, you know, spent lots and lots of money, it was just phenomenal. And the man who was speaking said, there's so many worthy individuals. We want to get those people into medical schools. We want for them to come. And we don't want this to be a deterrent, which I'm sure it must be for a lot of them. So yes, that was a great gift. You were going to say something.
Shaquille O'Neal, I know y'all have all heard, he goes
Oh, yeah.
around
Yeah, I
and,
know.
he says he's not a celebrity, he doesn't want to be part of it.
Well, I think an example of a person who really does a lot did a lot was Truett Cathy.
Oh,
You know, all the things he
yes.
does. You know,
Is it windshield?
we did a
Yes.
story on that. He had the wind shape.
Yes.
You know, I practice in Rome, so I'm familiar with the wind shape. They take these children, they educate them, they do a lot. And, you know, he did that. And, you know, when he was sick, he spoke to the Windshape people and he told them, he said, now listen, I know staff, y'all got wives and families and y'all wonder, and y'all know that I'm sick. And you wonder what's gonna happen to the Windshape when I die. He said, I want to assure you, Windshape will be a whole lot better off when I'm dead. And I know the guy that was the director, and he said, and it definitely was.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing. The lesson implication from Jesus was that the wealthy gave publicly and noisily so that others could notice their gift. Well, their gift was not a sacrifice. It did not change the way they would live or value of their wealth. Not so for the widow. She probably would have rather had her small gift in secret. I mean, she probably did not want to give this small gift publicly, so it wouldn't bring attention to her poverty. But that didn't happen. We know her gift was a sacrifice since it was all she had to live on. But what do you think were her thoughts about giving the gift? Why would she give everything she had at that point? What must have been in her mind? What was the spirit of that gift?
Love.
Love. Love of God, love of synagogue, love of people.
Faith in the Lord to
Yes.
take care of her.
Exactly. Do you think it's possible that she could have been coerced to give that kind of gift? No, probably not. This was a lesson that Jesus was presenting to his disciples and to all the people listening. And I don't think, personally, I don't think that the wealthy that he was talking about, and that's not everybody who's wealthy, certainly we've mentioned some, but I don't think they would have paid much attention to what he was saying or taken it to heart. But I think everybody else might have at that time, the lesson that he was giving to them and to his disciples. Would it be easy for his disciples to cater to the wealthy and overlook the poor? Oh, I think so, and I think that might have been part of the lesson that he was giving them also. Think about the gift. Yes, we want the large donation, but this other gift is just as important and comes more from the heart or maybe out of a desire. This lesson contained various topics. And like I said, I wasn't sure why the meaning of the Son of David and the changing character of the role of the scribes came in here. I couldn't quite put it all together. It was interesting stuff for me to look at. I was fascinated by it. But to me, it didn't juxtapose the two characterizations of the two gifts. So whatever they were meaning, maybe I missed it. It had a lot of facets. But in terms of giving, no one can tell us what to give or how much to give, but we should always remember that everything we have is from God. God is the great giver, and when we give, we should remember the generosity of God to us. I think that's maybe something we can take away from that. Anybody else? No? Well, let me say a quick prayer for us. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this beautiful day. We're thankful the people are here. We ask for your hand on the people whose names are on the board. And please help us to remember this idea of giving from the heart, giving where it is needed, and giving without coercion. We ask that in your name. Amen. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm going to run to choir. I hate to run out of
She said she would, but I'll get it.
Oh, thank you.